Once a giant, always a giant. For me, it's only a giant.
What's going on YouTube? Diggy546. Definitely hit that subscribe button if you're new. Like the video if you like the video. And I won't tell if you click that bell. But let's go ahead and get into this. Alright folks, so we are down to the 53-man roster. I made a video 2 days ago predicting the 53-man roster. I would say I came pretty close. I got all the quarterbacks right, of course. I got all of the running backs right. I got all of the tight ends right, and we ended up keeping 10 offensive linemen. So I didn't have us keeping Jake Kubas, but I had him keeping the first 9. Let's see, for defensive line, I had that right. Outside linebackers, I had that right. I had inside linebackers right, except we kept an extra. We kept Matthew Adams, who had he's kind of made his impact on special teams. As far as a secondary, looks like I got that right. Safeties, got that right. And specialists, of course. So what I got wrong was the offensive line. They kept an extra offensive lineman. They kept, I think, 6 wide receivers instead of 7. They didn't keep Miles Boykin. They didn't keep Darnay Holmes. So I did get the corners wrong because they didn't keep Darnay Holmes for special teams. Gunnar Olszewski's on the team, who I didn't have making the team because Isaiah McKenzie's injured, and maybe they just like Gunnar better. So I would say I'm at like a 85% hit rate, which is decent. But let's go through this roster, our final roster. And this isn't final, of course, because there are a ton of waivers that are going to be going out, and guys are going to be losing their jobs. Guys are going to be getting, picked up off the street. Everything's going to be happening over the next couple of days. So this is by no means a final roster. And because of that dynamic of the roster is going to change, I'm kind of going to give my opinion on what I think will happen with each one of these player spots. Is it a permanent spot, or is it, sort of a couple of day thing? So Daniel Jones, Drew Lock, Tommy DeVito, I think all of that is staying the same. I think we're keeping 3 quarterbacks. I don't think they want to put DeVito on the chopping block. I don't think they want him to go anywhere. So that will stay the same. Tyrone Tracy, Eric Gray, Devin Singletary, 3 running backs. You're not going below 3 running backs. So I don't see them replacing any of these 3. Devin Singletary you brought in, Tyrone Tracy and Eric Gray you drafted the last 2 years. So this running back room is staying the same. Malik Neighbors, Wan'Dale Robinson, Jalen Hyatt, all are making the team. I'm saying they're going to continue to stay on the team. Slayton Stan, Bryce Ford Wheaton, and Gunnar Olszewski are interesting to me because is Gunnar Olszewski just here as a placeholder, to maybe go out and get another wide receiver? Is he here and we really plan to bring back Miles Boykin on the practice squad and then elevate him before a game? Bryce Ford Wheaton is really standing out to me because he made some plays, I think, was it last year in the offseason, and he really looked good, but I did not really see him do much this year. Didn't really see much this year, and it was interesting to me that he made the roster. I guess he is the youngest, which leads me to my first surprise cut, which is Isaiah Hodgins. And I was really surprised that Isaiah Hodgins got cut. And then once he was cut, I was also surprised that Allen Robinson was cut. Hodgins, Allen Robinson, Miles Boykin, because of the special teams dynamic, and then also Isaiah McKenzie, you can say. And it wasn't necessarily because I was like, these guys are definitely making the roster. It was more that I was saying, if Isaiah Hodgins doesn't make it, then Allen Robinson makes it. If Allen Robinson doesn't make it, Hodgins make it. If McKenzie doesn't make it, I thought Gunnar would make it. But I definitely didn't see us keeping Bryce Ford Wheaton as our 5th receiver, because I think just objectively, Isaiah Hodgins is a better 5th receiver, like actual receiver, than Bryce Ford Wheaton. But I guess Bryce Ford Wheaton gives you more of the gunning ability, I guess you can call it. He can be a better gunner than Isaiah Hodgins. He's faster, he's big, and he's been doing decent. I don't think he's as good as Miles Boykin or Darnay Holmes, but he's been decent, and he does have some receiving potential. So it kind of makes sense, but it did catch me by surprise. Going to tight ends, Daniel Bellinger, Theo Johnson, and Chris Manhertz. Exactly what I thought. I thought that we may try to do something to keep Lawrence Cager. We'll see if he clears waivers, if he goes to the practice squad and he, comes back with that injury designation, and see what we do with that. But those are the 3 tight ends I had on the roster, and I think this makes perfect sense. You got your rookie, who you think can do a little bit of both. You got Daniel Bellinger, who you think can do a little bit of both. And when I say both, I mean catching and blocking. And then you got Chris Manhertz, who you want to bring in almost as an extra offensive lineman to come out and block. So makes sense there. I hope no one gets hurt. If they do, tight ends are everywhere. Jack Stoll will probably be on that practice squad, so elevate him. And I think he's a similar skill set to Daniel Bellinger. Offensive line. Again, no surprises here. And this can be a good thing as far as, you got some good players. And this can also be a bad thing because, your 10th and 11th and 12th offensive linemen weren't really threatening to make the team. So Andrew Thomas, John Runyon, John Michael Smith, Greg Van Roten, Jermaine Illuminor. We all knew that. Aaron Stinney, he's the first guard up pretty much. Evan Neal, first tackle up. Josh Azudu, they got listed at tackle. First tackle, second tackle up, but also can play some guard. And then I think this is a mistake, but I think his name might be Aaron. So let's just say Slotman, the backup center. You needed a guy who's a pure center, who's a backup, and Greg Van Roten played some center for us, but he may be a starter for us. So got to keep Slotman. And Jake Kubas was the guy who I wasn't expecting us to keep, but he had some solid reps out there. I was also looking at the guy, I think his name is Jonathan Miles, the tackle. He had a really nice first game, kind of struggled this last game, but he'll probably be another guy who's a contender for that practice squad. So the only surprise there is Jake Kubas. Defensive line, my exact 5 defensive linemen: Dexter Lawrence, Nacho, Elijah Chapman, Jordan Riley, and DJ Davison. Makes sense. You got your backup defensive tackle, Jordan Riley. You got DJ Davison, who can do some nose stuff and can do some 3-tech stuff. And I think he's really going to make that much of an impact there. You got Nacho, who's your starting 3-tech. And then you got Elijah Chapman, who can be that backup 3-tech. So hopefully, we'll see a nice little rotation and those guys can play up to par. But no surprises there. Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, outside linebacker starters. Azeez Ojulari and Boogie Basham are your 2 backups. And then Benton Whitley is your 5th guy as your floater. And that's also what I had going for outside linebackers. And then inside linebacker, Bobby Okereke, Micah McFadden, your starters. No surprises. Muasau, he just got drafted, so he's making the team. Carter Coughlin, special teamer. Matthew Adams, special teamer. Deontay Johnson is probably going to be competing with Muasau to be that guy that comes in as your 3rd or 4th linebacker to come in, actually play linebacker instead of just being a pure special teamer. And I'm sure he'll play some special teams too. And Matthew Adams was a surprise there for me because I didn't think he had done enough to make the roster, but they liked what he did on special teams enough for him to make that roster. And then cornerback, I had us keeping Darnay Holmes. We decided not to. Listen, no issue there with me. They also have Isaiah Simmons listed as a corner. So he's essentially your backup slot corner. And when I say they, I mean NJ.com, now NorthJersey.com, in an article by Art Stapleton. He has Isaiah Simmons as a backup corner. So Tay Banks, Nick McLeod, Drew Phillips, I think that is most realistically your starters. Cordell Flott, Isaiah Simmons, Trey Hawkins. So that's what your corner room is looking like. I would not be surprised if we make some waiver moves to bring in some kind of a vet because, man, it's thin there. It's thin. And then safety. Pinnock, Newbin, Dane Belton. No surprises there. And then your specialists, Graham Gano, Gillen, and Casey Crater. Looking at this roster, this is about what I expected, give or take, four names, probably around that. And yeah, not really that surprising. Again, that can be a bad thing because you can say, well, maybe it should be a surprise because that means you have a lot of competition. But guess what? There have been a lot of times we've been disgruntled because we decided to let go of somebody and they didn't really end up doing anything anyway. So only time will tell, but for now, we have our 53-man roster. I'm expecting us to be very aggressive in the receiver market, looking for returners, also looking for defensive tackle and looking for cornerback. I'm expecting us to be aggressive there. There are a couple of guys like Terrace Marshall, who's not a returner, but he's out there. And listen, give him a shot. But there's a couple of guys out there that I think the Giants will be looking at, mostly, like I said, as a returner, as a cornerback, and as a defensive tackle. Because right now, as far as returner goes, Gunnar Olszewski is still hurt. They're not really sure that he'll be ready week 1. So he may be a guy that goes on IR. So we're going to have to do something to address that. But in the meantime, looking at wide receiver, and this will be probably my last takeaway. Looking at wide receiver, we don't have a backup slot receiver. Malik Neighbors, Wan'Dale Robinson, Jalen Hyde are your starters. Darius Slayton probably is going to be a quasi starter. He can play out of the slot, but you don't have another, slot receiver. So what I think will happen if for some reason Wan'Dale Robinson isn't playing for whatever reason, let's knock on wood. If he's not playing at times during the season, I think what you'll see a lot of is Jalen Hyatt on one side, Darius Slayton on another side, Malik Neighbors in the slot. I think he's your backup slot. I think that's what that is. And then as far as another guy, Gunnar Olszewski is probably your third slot, but he's got to get healthy. So that's where we're at as far as the 53. You guys let me know what you're thinking of this roster. What is it, August 27th? There will 100% be 2 to 3 moves, if not more, done, where some of these names will no longer be on the roster. Some of them will be on PUP, IR, or whatever. But you guys let me know what you're thinking of this final 53. If you made it this deep into the video, come on, just hit the subscribe button. I make Giants content primarily, draft content secondarily, and during the season, I'm going to be doing a lot of reacting to pretty much most of the NFL games and everything NFL. So if you made it this deep, go ahead and join the D6 squad.